Hey, what's up, everybody? In this video tutorial, we're going to be taking a look at how to create an injection mold. The injection mold that we're going to be creating in this case is going to be for a chocolate candy. A couple things we have to know with injection molds is that we are going to be injecting a mold, and a mold is simply just something that has an entrance and it has a cavity. We're going to be injecting that material, which in this case is chocolate, in a molten state, which means it's going to be melted. We're going to push that in through a port. It's going to go into the cavity, and it's going to fill that cavity. Now, a little science principle here that we have to kind of think about is that we already have air in that cavity. So if material is going into that cavity, that air needs to be able to escape the cavity. So what we have to do in this case with this type of mold is actually produce something called a vent, and that vent is going to allow that air to escape and to allow that material to easily go into that cavity and to keep from having a bunch of air bubbles in it. So in this case, since it's getting close to Valentine's Day, I'm going to be creating a chocolate heart candy. And we're going to kind of customize that and then create the mold around it. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and let's get started. I'm going to create a sketch on this workface, and I'm just going to give myself just an area to sort of work with here. I want to keep my candy size within a 2 by 2 sort of box here. And with that being done, we can now go ahead and I'm just going to start my candy. Like at this point right here, I'm going to pull this up to this point. And then what I'm going to do is come out here and I'm going to draw another line. Let's go ahead and get that going. I'm going to create this side of the heart. And now I can go ahead and use arc. So I'm going to pick it from here to here. I'm going to pull this up until I see that tangency point that just formed. And now I can come in here and I can rip out that square. Okay, I'm going to continue on with this. I'm going to come out here and go to mirror, select these two entities and say select from my mirror line. That's my mirror line. I'm going to say okay. Okay, and now I can go ahead and finish the sketch up and I can do an extrusion, okay, of this heart. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to keep this symmetrical because I do want to use that origin later. I'm going to say that my distance on this is 3/4 of an inch, okay, for my extrusion. Okay, now we can go ahead and start making the shape of our heart. So I'm going to use fillet here, come in here and grab this edge, and I'm going to say that that fillet radius is going to be like 0.125. Okay, I'm going to come down here to the bottom, put a fillet here at the bottom with the same radius of 0.125. Now I'm going to go ahead and grab fillet one more time, grab this edge and grab this edge and put it my fillet radius of 0.125. It's going to round it all over. Okay, so we're good. All right, that's going to be our chocolate candy. All right, so I want to kind of customize this. So this is the point when you could create your own design, your own text, whatever. Just remember, you can't have a really, really thin geometry to extrude because you're now kind of leaving the door open for that material to actually get stuck in the mold when this is actually coming out of the mold. All right, so just kind of keep that in mind. But I've got some SVGs that are saved, so I'm going to come out here, maybe pull in like a PLTW logo. I can get that to the right size I'm looking for. I can get that into the position, get my scaling done, and I'm just going to go ahead and put that in the dead center of this. All right, so we're looking pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and finish that, finish the sketch, look at this in home view, and now I can go ahead and do an extrusion here. And I'm going to extrude that forward. And I'm going to say I'm going to bring that out like 0.06. Okay, so we have that nice raised sort of lettering on that side. And then come over here to this, I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to throw in another SVG here. I think I had an LTHS logo. Okay, I'd scale that down, get that into location. And I'm gonna go ahead and just drop that right there in the dead center. Okay, so that one's done. I can finish that sketch, look at this in home view. All right, let's go ahead and extrude that. And once again, I'm gonna pull that out to a distance of 0.06. All right, so we have our LTHS logo, we have our PLTW logo. Okay, we're looking pretty good. And here we go. Looks like we had a little hiccup there with Fusion. Okay, so let's actually go ahead and make this look like candy. That would probably be pretty smart. Actually, we're gonna wait off on that. All right, so what we're going to do is now create the port in which this material is going to be injected into the candy. All right, so for this, I'm going to go ahead and turn on my origin. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come out here and offset a plane. I'm going to pick the bottom. I'm going to pull this up. But when I pull this up, what I'm going to do is look at this at like the front view. All right, so there's some things we have to kind of think about here. Number one is that there's going to be a nozzle from some sort of a hose, or it's going to be some sort of injector that's going to be injecting this material in, which is chocolate. So that nozzle is going to be bigger than the port. So we got to leave some room for that, and then we have to leave some room for the actual port. So I'm going to pull this up just a little bit, making sure this is well above the heart. And I'm going to go ahead and say okay. And now what I'm going to do is create a sketch on top of this. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is use project. I'm going to project these faces forward just so I can get some geometry to use. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to create a circle. I'm just gonna track off this midpoint and track off this midpoint. I'm gonna find that dead center, and I'm gonna say that this port is going to be zero point 0.5 inches in diameter, or half an inch in diameter. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and say, let's do one more thing here. Let's go ahead, draw a circle. This is gonna be a quarter of an inch. Now I'm gonna finish this up. Okay, so I'm gonna say this is going to extrude. This profile is going to extrude down. This is going to be a join. Make sure it goes all the way into the candy. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and say okay. I'm now going to pull that sketch back because what I also want to do is do an extrusion again of that entire profile. I want this to be a join, and I'm going to say that this is going to go in, like a quarter of an inch. Okay, and I'm going to say okay on that. All right, so this is the nozzle coming off the pump. This is going to be the channel, okay, the injection port where the chocolate's going to come in. This is the cavity that the chocolate's going to go into. And as I said before, we also need to make sure that there's going to be a vent at the bottom so that material can actually escape. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I can see that this work plane here, okay, is well below the candy. So I can go ahead, create a sketch on this. And now what I can do, and this is pretty kind of, clever, we can say, let's go ahead and project that circle that I've already created forward. And now I can just finish the sketch. This is when I can use extrude as a join, and I can go ahead and send this all the way into that chocolate. Okay, so that's really what it is we need. So I can go ahead and turn off this sketch right now. I can go ahead and turn off my work plane. Now I can start getting started on the rest of my mold. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and create a sketch right here on top. Okay, I can use project to project this geometry forward. And when I do that, I get a center point. This is when I can come out and use a center rectangle. Okay, and I'm gonna say that my mold in my case is, I think we can make that 1.5 um, by a total of 2. I think we're gonna have plenty of room with that. Now I can go ahead and finish the sketch. I can use extrude. Oops. I can use extrude and I can pull that entire box down as a new body. Okay, but as I'm pulling that down, what I'm going to do is, let's do that one more time. When I pull this down, what I can do instead of using distance is I can say to object and I can pick that face, but I don't want this to be a cut. I don't want this to be a join. I want this to be a new body. Okay, so that opening is there at the top. It's also here at the bottom. So now we're going to go ahead and say okay. All right, so if I look at my bodies, I can see body 1, I can see body 2. I'm going to come up here and go to combine. I'm going to pick the large box first, then I'm going to select that heart-shaped candy as my tool body. I'm going to use this as a cut, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to keep the tool, and I'm going to say okay. All right, so now we're down to body 1 and body 2. So body one is going to be my candy. So I'm going to turn it off. Okay. And now is a point when I could come out here. All right. I can go into mid plane. I can pick this face, then pick this face. I have a work plane going down through the center. Okay. And now I can come up here and I can say I want to split the body. So I pick the body, select splitting tools. It's going to split it. And I'm going to say, okay. All right. So I can come down here now and turn off that plane. And now what I'm left with is body one, two, and three. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick my bodies one, two, and three, right click and say create components from the bodies. And now I can start giving these the names. So my component one is going to be my chocolate candy. My component two is going to be my injection mold back. And then this new component here is going to be my injection mold front. Okay, so my injection mold back in this case, I'm going to say is grounded. I can pull this off and I can pull this off. Okay. And now what I can do is I can go ahead and start putting these in place. So I can say like this joint origin is going to match up with this joint origin, making sure that that is a rigid. Okay. And now what I can do is say I want to hinge this point and this point, but that needs to be a revolute. And obviously I need to use the flip flop, get that into the right position and say, okay. All right. So it's going to work just like so. All right. This is the point when I can start adding joints to it. So I'm going to go ahead and just bring that back. I'm going to go into my revolute. I'm going to edit my motion. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and say I want this to come open to -180. My maximum is going to be 0. And then my rest I'm going to say is at 90 so we can actually keep that open. Oops, -90. So I can keep it open for my drawing. My max, let's set at 0. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. All right, looking good. We can say okay. All right, so that's going to keep it open for me. And this is the time when I can now start applying my materials to it. So my chocolate candy, I'm going to come up to my physical material. And we have no chocolate in here, obviously. So let's just come down to plastic. Let's just put some ABS plastic on that. And then we'll come up here to my plastic and I'm going to say edit, go into advanced, go into my appearance, and let's go ahead and change our color. And we can give this a chocolate color. Okay, so we're looking good there. And now we can come out here to my injection mold, put on a physical material. In this case, we're going to just use like stainless steel. We'll come down to stainless, add our stainless to that. And then here for the last part of the mold, obviously is going to be stainless steel again. Okay, so now we have the chocolate that we're looking for. Okay, we have the mold that we're looking for. All right, everything's basically set. Last thing we have to do, probably do a little save here. Call this our PLTW chocolate candy injection mold. Now we can switch over to our drawing environment. We can go into our custom title block and say okay. And now we can go ahead and put this into an isometric sort of look that we're looking for. And we can go ahead and bump up our scale. So we're going to say this is a 1:1. Drop that right in there, make sure it's shaded, say okay. And at this point, this is when we can go ahead and export out our PDF and turn that into Google Classroom. So there you go. That's how to create an injection mold for a chocolate candy.